The thoughts and opinions of Skylar Sylvie expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of the Grim Times Podcast or Jeff Jarman. Thank you and enjoy the show. Alright, hello and welcome to the Grim Times Podcast, coming to you live from outside of Humansville, Missouri. I'm sitting live in studio with Skylar today.
Hi.
This is our first episode back in Missouri now, so we're in the process of looking for a house and all that fun stuff. But anyway, we've got Connor in the background. I don't know what sort of noise is going to come from that baby crying. If that is the case, then you know why. So, anyway, today, this is our second part of the religion series. We're going to talk about...
Praise the Lord!
We're going to talk about the story of Noah today, and the flood and all that kind of stuff. So, do you want to tell the story of the flood, or do you want me to go through it?
I'll do it. That's fine. Once upon a time, there was a land far beyond the realms of our sight. And this dude built a boat, and a flood happened, and they lived. The end.
Alright, well, let's get into the specifics here.
You said a brief overview.
Well, basically, Noah is considered to be one of the last righteous men on the planet, I guess, at that time, and him and his family, and God spoke to them somehow, and told him he needs to build an ark, and...
It was a rectum mic.
And take all the animals, and this is another conflicting deal here. There's two places in the Bible where it talks about this whole story. There's one version where Noah takes two of every animal, a male and a female, which is the most widely known one. And then there's another story about how Noah was instructed to take 7 pairs of clean animals, or pure animals, or something like that. So it's really weird, and it's from a separate book. It's not in Genesis, but that one is in a book later on in the Bible. It's not separate, so just so we're clear on that. It's not like Apocrypha or whatever that other supposedly fake text is. But yeah, so that's the main story. I mean, Noah gets all the animals on the boat, and then God brings this flood and washes away all of the sin and all the evil people on the world, which I'm a firm believer there were survivors from this flood, like the Nephilim.
Well, on a side note here, you also got to weigh in consideration that, after he flooded the earth and supposedly killed everything, although the Bible speaks of remnants and such, actually in the Bible, like an example of this would be the guy actually named in the Bible, Og. But the point is if he killed every human, on earth, then pretty much what they're suggesting is it went all the way back through another Adam and Eve scenario, where freaking relatives bred with relatives to create the human race all over again. Which is very screwed up in my opinion, but, whatever.
Yeah, and
Jesus cares.
It pretty much would have had to start everything over, which is kind of weird to think about. But, yeah, so that's the main story of the flood. And, I mean, everybody knows the story of the flood, really, but one of the first things we can get into is this is actually not the first tale of a great flood. I believe there was one known by the Sumerian people, right? You know more about that than I do.
Approximately 50,000 years ago. Yeah, and it revolved around the same exact storyline as the Book of Noah, all the way down to, I think there was like 7 or 8 specific details that Noah, on the surface seemed to have ripped off from that text, such as, the little dove sent out the window to see if the water had in fact receded. That was specifically in the Epic of Gilgamesh, as it's called.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
So the only question that you must ask yourself is simply, which one are you going to believe? You're going to believe a book that came out 50,000 years ago, or you're going to believe a book that was actually written way later on and around the time of Nero, the ancient Roman Empire, and then vamped during the Holy Roman Empire founded by Constantine during, I think it was either during or before the Middle Ages, or maybe around, I don't remember. The fact of the matter is I choose to believe neither one and say they're both nonsense, but that's just my opinion.
Well, you never know. I mean, it's kind of like if you think in today's terms, if a major world event happens, it's going to be talked about in more than just one newspaper. It's going to be reported more than one time.
Yeah, but if your world consisted of just one continent, you know, and let's say an earthquake hit your continent, you know, then to you, the whole world just exploded.
Where was the Sumerian Empire as opposed to?
The Sumerian Empire was in around, if I remember correctly, modern day Iraq.
So it was really the same general area as where the Bible came from.
Yeah, roughly that was, if I remember correctly, the Noah story was around the Black Sea or some crap. So
yeah.
I don't remember where that is either.
Yeah.
Nor care.
Well. So there's that aspect of it. I don't know. It's hard to decide, where you want to go from there.
Wonder if any of them had sex with animals.
All you can do is really look at what information we do have, in the Bible versus other texts outside of the Bible, like the Sumerian.
Get over here, giraffe!
And so, also, it's interesting to examine Noah's life after the flood. It seems like things kind of went downhill from there. Noah became kind of an owner of a vineyard and produced wine and things like that. So he drank a lot after the flood, which I guess if you had something like that happen in your life, it might force you to drink. I don't know. But there was one story where he gets so drunk that he passes out naked in his tent or in a house or something. And I think 2 of his sons come in and stumble upon him, and they find him there. And they just kind of turn around and leave and go back out because, what are you going to do when you walk in and see your dad stark naked on the floor, passed out drunk?
Cry.
And so they turned around and they left. And basically what happened after that is I guess Noah was furious or something, and he cast his sons away, like he made them leave. When really it was his fault for being a drunken idiot, but his sons were told to leave. I don't know if they went out and made fun of him or something, or what the deal was with that, but that doesn't sound like the best guy on the planet at that point to me, so I don't know.
Well, look, to my mind, this isn't the first time in the Bible that God, with quotations, had, destroyed an entire large, group of individuals. There was another famous story. It's actually one of my personal favorites. Is Sodom and Gomorrah, where God chose. I can't remember who. I think his name was Abel or something. I don't remember his name.
Yeah, Cain and Abel.
No, it wasn't Cain and Abel. That was actually. See, this is where I was wrong. It wasn't Cain and Abel. Sodom and Gomorrah came after them people. It was Sodom and Gomorrah, where there's 2 cities. And pretty much they were rife with bestiality and craziness and ungodliness, and all the way to the point that one of the main characters, the daughters, were getting the father drunk so they could keep their seed within or keep their bloodlines in the family or some crazy crap, or I can't remember exactly the point of that, but he chooses the guy. The guy who has sex with his daughters while drunk as his excuse, okay, to be the guy to lead his whatevers out of freaking Sodom and Gomorrah before God basically nukes the entire 2 cities. So, I don't know, I get kind of annoyed whenever you see God's chosen men and all these men are kind of in some way, shape, or form screwed up. Another one would be, what's his name, Abraham. God came up to Abraham, actually an angel of God came up to Abraham, and as though it were God, said that I want you to prove your faith to me. This is an angel of God, not God, okay, saying, I want you to prove your faith to me, and I want, and by doing, and how you're going to do this is by killing your son on an altar to prove it. And I'm sitting here okay, well, you're reading this thing and you're okay, so naturally, as a human, you're going to defy God because, why the hell would you want to stab your son on an altar? Well, naturally, of course, I'm incorrect here, along with any logical person reading the Bible, and he goes to actually attempt to kill his son, and the angel of God stops him midway through and like, "You've proven your faith to me." It just, the annoyance in all of this is an angel God talking as if it were God to Abraham to prove his faith, so the guy could prove his faith to God, which shouldn't be proven because God should know everything, so he should know what you're thinking before you thought it, in fact, before you created you, thus counteracting the entire moot point of having to prove any faith whatsoever to him. And secondly, why would God be so insecure as to need it? But that's a different topic later.
Yeah, that's something else we are going to go into about how God is a jealous God and how God is, a proud God and all these different things that you would normally think would be sins, but I guess are not.
Yeah, like, reason. I think pride is one of the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah, but, and that actually reminds me of another story.
And envy. Yeah.
Where it was something that I really did not understand. I'm trying to think of the guy's name who he did it to. If you are pretty familiar with the Bible, you'll probably know the story I'm talking about. But anyway, at some point, they actually did a South Park episode on this, and this is what really brought it to my attention. Kyle was having a problem with one of the things with God or something, and basically, like, it was one of those deals where God was talking to Satan, maybe, and they had a wager about, like, do you think God was like, look at this man, he's so holy, and he follows everything I say, and he, prays to me all the time, and he's so faithful, and he's talking to Satan or something, and Satan's like, well, do you think he would still be faithful if you took everything away from him? And so God's like, yeah, I do, you're on. And so this poor innocent man who follows God his entire life, all his livestock is killed, all his family is murdered by thieves or something.
Jesus cares.
They're all murdered, and his house is destroyed. He gets welts and like boils and stuff on his skin.
Sounds like radiation sickness.
He gets all these, like, the worst suffering you could even imagine. And he's still faithful, and yeah, Satan's like, all right, God, you win. And God's like, okay. And that's about it. I think in the end, God does reward the guy, though, with more children.
Actually, I think I remember this story when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think he gets more children or something to replace the ones that were murdered. And he gets new livestock and a new house or something, so that's all fine and dandy. But, yeah, I mean, that seems kind of messed up to me. I don't know if I can really go with that one.
You know how I look at it? You want to prove somebody's faith in you, you tell them to lick their own butthole.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. If you can actually get a person who believes in you so much to lick their own butthole, then they've proven their loyalty, because who the hell would want to do that?
Yeah.
On their own accord.
Yeah, assuming you could bend the right way to achieve that.
But it's like you got to have a lot of faith in your doctor to allow them to do a freaking prostate exam.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, what if they did that in the middle of prostate exam and I'm like,
I know a lot of guys who won't even let the doctors do that.
Like myself.
Yeah, they're like too manly. They're like, no doctor's touching my butthole.
It'll remain untainted.
Yeah, you'll be a virgin at the doctor's office.
No, I'd rather be dead.
But,
so I can talk to God.
Yeah. So, I don't know, that's pretty much as far as I can go into it with the story of Noah and different things.
No, I can drag this out for the next 2 hours.
Well, we've got about 5 minutes here. Is there anything else that we need to cover?
Yeah. What, why is it a flood? Like, here's a thought, and this is very interesting. If you were going to destroy all life on Earth, why would you use a flood? Because, A, the waterfowl will be still alive, especially the ones that eat fish. And how are you going to kill fish with a flood?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're wanting to destroy all life on Earth, flood the Earth with lava.
Yeah, or just meteors or some sort of whatever, like what killed the dinosaurs, maybe.
Yeah, like, I mean, and like, if you had all this power, Okay, why would he have allowed this to happen to begin with?
Or you would think he would have known it was going to happen anyway if he's omnipotent.
Yeah. And not to mention the point, I mean, does he have the ability to lick his own butthole? Does God even have a butthole? See, this is the ultimate questions that lead to, the epic thoughts of, like Christmas and stuff.
Something that's kind of interesting. We're supposedly made in God's image. So I wonder why God has never actually shown himself to be, like us. Why he would have to come in a burning bush or, something like that.
Well, no, I mean, in the beginning of the Bible, he did physically walk up to Adam and Eve.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that talked about him walking through the garden and did we cover this on the last podcast?
Yeah, this is where, like, we were talking about also how that led into the invention of Twinkies.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Totally happened. Like, and God, like, another thing that annoys me is that they call him, like, this all-powerful being, and then, like, I can sit here and say, like, maybe he's an alien. Like, he took the rib of Adam and made, a woman out of it. So, like, in my mind, I'm thinking, like, he's got some extreme, like, cloning and DNA technology. And maybe he's a group. But we get these angels that call themselves the angels of God and talk as though they are God. So what if God is more of an organization rather than, like, one person?
Well, remember you brought up last time about how we'll make man in our image.
Yeah, it says that, like, right before the like, when everybody spreads around one, which is, like, in my image,
And some people will say that that's because he's referring to the Holy Spirit and...
No, you're talking about the Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
It's freaking so... That is a creation created way later to justify all the nonsensical contradictions that are in the Bible. It's like saying... I can't even come up with a good example here. It's like when Windows 7 Windows Vista came out, and then they added all those mods later. I mean, I don't know. It's just like we have this flaw, and we're going to throw in this bull crap nonsense to try and justify our own existence and believing in it. It's like some wise guy will come out and point out the plurality.
Duality?
No, I was trying to say plurality. I don't think it's a word.
It might be.
Probably. I'll look it up sometime in a billion years. But the thing is that, some guy might point it out, and then they just bring up, like, the whole Holy Trinity. It's like, to my mind, the only Trinity that ever existed was the Trinity rocket that they tested back in the day after, nuking, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yeah, that was a good Trinity right there. That was a Holy Trinity. Because whenever you look at that, you're like, holy shit! That is awesome. And they should have named the first two Sodom and Gomorrah just for, like, the whole God complex humor.
All right, well, on that note, that's the end of the podcast. Thank you all for listening. Go ahead and visit www.thejeffjarmanshow.com.
And if you really like our show, lick your butthole.
Or you can like us on Facebook.
Whatever.
There's that. You can like the Jeff Jarman Show on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. Skylar's on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffJarman55. You can follow Skylar on Twitter at SkylarSylvie. Yeah, and thank you for listening. The next episode will be... I'm not sure what it'll be, but we're going in chronological order through the Bible. And we're going to end up at the very end of the New Testament and just kind of go over some contradictions and just the Bible as a whole. So anyway, thank you for listening. Tune in next time to the Grim Times podcast. Animals, just something like that. So it's really weird, and it's from a separate book. It's not in Genesis, but that one is in a book later on in the Bible. It's not separate. So just so we're clear on that, it's not like Apocrypha or whatever that other supposedly fake text is. But yeah, so that's the main story. I mean, Noah gets all the animals on the boat, and then God brings this flood and washes away all of the sin and all the evil people on their world, which I'm a firm believer that, and told him he needs to build an ark, and
it was a rectum mic,
and take all the animals, and this is another conflicting deal here. There's two places in the Bible where it talks about this whole story. There's one version where Noah takes two of every animal, a male and a female, which is the most widely known one, and then there's another story about how Noah was instructed to take 7 pairs of clean animals or pure. We've got Connor in the background. I don't know what sort of noise is going to come from that baby crying. If that is the case, then you know why. So anyway, today this is our second part of the religion series. We're going to talk about
Praise the Lord.
We're going to talk about the story of Noah today and the flood and all that kind of stuff. So do you want to tell the story of the flood, or do you want me to go through it?
I'll do it. That's fine. Once upon a time, there was a land far beyond the realms of our sight. And this dude built a boat, and a flood happened, and they lived. The end.
All right, well, let's get into the specifics here.
You said a brief overview.
Well, basically, Noah is considered to be one of the last righteous men on the planet, I guess, at that time, and him and his family, and God spoke to them somehow. The thoughts and opinions of Skylar Sylvie expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of the Grim Times podcast or Jeff Jarman. Thank you, and enjoy the show. All right, hello, and welcome to the Grim Times podcast, coming to you live from outside of Humansville, Missouri. I'm sitting live in studio with Skylar today.
Hi.
This is our first episode back in Missouri now, so we're in the process of looking for a house and all that fun stuff. But anyway,